My name is Reuben Shaw, and I'm a professor at the Salk Institute, and I also serve as the director of our Cancer Center.
I'm Xuchi, Naungayan, Eggleton. I am an artist, and I'm also a professor of art at Maricosta College.
My lab's research at the Salk Institute focuses on cancers primarily, but we also focus on how specific genes and certain biochemical processes that go wrong in cancer also go wrong in other diseases, including type 2 diabetes and some neurodegenerative diseases. And this has been a big surprise that scientists didn't know even 10 years ago, that there was these commonalities to these broad diseases.
So my artistic practice is different every time, actually. It is so varied that you will rarely see one project that will identically look like the next project. There might be some similarities, but I usually am rooted in the materiality and the history that it brings forth, and then that becomes part of the story. Another component of my practice is that I also have often some engagement opportunities. So whether it's with the public or as of late actually involving my family in some of the collaborative efforts to making work. And I find that to be more meaningful. And it also extends the life of the work and kind of demystifies the process as well. So.
One of the things that I found really exciting when this prospect first came up to be a part of Trifecta was that I have always felt that there's an aspect of science and doing discovery and learning new things and thinking about them in a different way that really has some commonalities with art and artistic discovery and pursuing new ideas and novel things. And I've always loved art, and so this was just a really unique chance to merge these worlds, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Well, I was interested in contributing to this project for a couple of reasons. As an artist, you know, and a lot of us do this, we're always thinking about different cultural things, different societal things, different areas of disciplines. Like there's always this cross-section already existing. And so there's that curiosity already. And so when it was presented to me, I'd never done anything like this before, you know, where I got to actually dig deep into something that, into real science. And I say real science because, you know, we might explore concepts and generalities, you know, as artists, but to actually have something specific.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a really unique opportunity. And so I was just really curious about that, you know, about like, you know, having done something, you know, having never done something like this before and just what can come out, you know, out of it.
When we first met to talk about the project, Xuchi came to the Salk, and we got to meet on the famous courtyard there, looking out over the Pacific Ocean. But then I brought her into the lab, and so it was really important for me to try to give a sense of some of the actual day-to-day, the physicality of doing different kinds of experiments and what life might be like or is like within the laboratory setting.
We started in your office and you explained to me so much of and really not explain, you kind of took me through the ride. It really felt like a wave, you know, I was riding this wave of the story, you know, behind some of the history of the science that contributed. And that was really eye-opening because it really put something, it gave more of a humanity behind something that can just be like, maybe, I don't know, you know, and so, and it really helped having you tell me the story behind everything. And so it was very exciting for me to just, you know, hear the story and to see where the magic happened. So after our meeting, and as far as like the evolution of how everything sort of came to be with my project, I went back and I looked at the notes that I did have, the resources that I remember, because immediately after we met, I just started writing everything down. I started listening to an audiobook that you had suggested, The Emperor of All Maladies, or it's a biography of cancer. And it was, it just, that continued actually to feed the story, as I was going through this project. One of the things that I was really interested in as I was, going, reflecting on taking it in and what's going to come out was trying to put it in ways that made sense to me, because there was such a, there was a great big learning curve for myself. Not having any background in any science. And so I thought, okay, what are the overreaching themes? What am I, because artists can speak in themes and in very general conceptual ways, and we all do that. And so by taking it all in and the connections of lung cancer and diabetes, and the fact that there might be these therapies that one might help the other, to me that was so profound, that there might be these diverging or seem like two different areas of disciplines or studies, and then I started to think about that in art.
I'm amazed you remember.
I started to think about that in art, how one thing over here can affect another thing over here pretty majorly. I was really inspired by that. And so for my project, I work in materials that are very disparate. There isn't really a consistency in them, except for that as of late, the consistency is that they're common materials. And so I really wanted to crash all these common materials, and even some traditional materials like plaster metals, and force them to interact and see what would happen.
Wow.
And so that was really the concept, and just creating this force interaction, and it sort of evolved in that way.
My response when I first saw it, I was amazed, and I could see that through line of what we had talked about that day at the Salk, and how we had talked about how unexpected connections between different diseases, between different discoveries, accidental discoveries even of new therapeutics, kind of weave through. And in particular, in the final product that I saw, I really thought, this does the central thing that we talked about, and this kind of central aspect that I often feel that I've been fortunate enough to discover in my work, these connections between different diseases and different ways of thinking, that was encaptured to me in the sculpture. So I really liked it, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah.
I think it's important to find connections across disciplines for various reasons. Number one, I'm an educator, and also an artist as well. And so as students are, and of course a parent, I think it all kind of relates to each other. As we're going along our paths as artists, or even as students, and or lifelong students, I feel like it's deeply important to always engage beyond our lane. And so and that might mean incorporating family, incorporating your area of study, or even just looking elsewhere. Because one thing that I have found is that in looking elsewhere, it actually informs my practice. The teaching informs my practice, or looking at the sciences informs my practice. And so it actually pushes me in directions that maybe I wouldn't have gotten there had I not gone out of my comfort zone of my own discipline. I do feel like it's so crucial that we acknowledge the interconnectedness of disciplines. I feel like that could probably speak to a larger global social issues, as opposed to staying in our own lanes. I feel like that's also, it can help each other out, as just human to human, person to person. And just by understanding what's going on over here, it gives a greater understanding and sensitivity, to perspectives, global perspectives, social, just interacting with everyday life, people perspectives. And I thoroughly believe that there shouldn't be these lanes that we stay in, and that we should really intermingle, and there should be this interwoven, relationships that, just in regards to areas of interest. And it will push, and I believe this with all of my being, that it will push our ideas, and it will push our kindness further.
Yeah, 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 that's great. That's great. I think collaboration reminds me of one of the things that I particularly like myself about science, and actually is one of the reasons that I came to San Diego to work at the Salk Institute. Jonas Salk actually famously said when he founded the Institute here that he wanted the Salk to actually be a place that was part science and driven by leading experts in different disciplines of science. So actually some people don't know this, but part of Jonas Salk's original vision for the Salk Institute was to have a major component not only be this cutting edge science and biomedical research, but also art. And he very much wanted the Institute itself to have a focus around art and for it to be a place not only of amazing architecture, but also that art would play a prominent role. And so in many ways, when this project first came up, I thought, oh, this is a vision that plays right into the ancestry of where I work, and which is very unique in science. There are not many scientific research buildings that this is a part of their history. So that was just really cool. And the other part of it, which I really like, this idea of crossing disciplines. And so the idea of being encouraged, or the discovery that comes from getting outside of your little world and your little lanes, that is where, to me, all the magic happens. The magic happens in between areas, and so this is just another example. I really think this type of merging of the worlds is just a fantastic opportunity, and it would just be wonderful if there were more things like this. As scientists, so much of what we do can be abstract, hard to explain to people, and hard for people to remember or conceptualize what we're talking about. So anything where a specialist or a person in any type of knowledge or pursuit of something can find a different medium to help bring it to a larger audience, I think that's fantastic. In all directions, this, but in both ways, like informing this thing, lots more of this.
I will say though, in all of the conversations that I've had with people about this project, it's really sparked a curiosity about what is happening in your lab. And so it has created an interest in that, and that's something that people didn't know, that every person that I've discussed had no idea that there were these connections. So
one of the amazing things of having this kind of support as a scientist is that the endowed chair really allows me in my research to pursue ideas that are actually these cross-pollinating ideas. And my own discoveries and my whole team, not just me, myself, but have come from these edges of how diabetes may relate to cancer, how cancer may relate to Parkinson's, how both of those things relate to the history of different species and different kinds of ideas. There are not traditional funding sources that will encourage or even allow, frankly, that kind of a thing. You traditionally write for a specialized grant on this subtype of lung cancer, this particular style of treating type 2 versus type 1 diabetes. You are not thinking of how these diseases may relate to each other, or how basic underpinnings of biology and biochemistry might relate to how cells work, and then how the body works, and then how things go wrong as we age. And so this type of endowed chair funding allows creativity, really. It fuels the ability to do studies and experiments and pursue ideas for which there is no other mechanism for that type of funding.